What secrets do royal treasuries hold? Behind every gemstone sparkle lie destinies, love stories, and entire eras. Today, we delve into the history of one of the most magnificent and weighty symbols of love, the ruby parure of Queen Therese of Bavaria. Are you ready to discover why this burden was too much even for a queen to bear? In a world of monarchical unions, where political calculation often outweighs affairs of the heart, the story of King Ludwig I of Bavaria and his consort, Therese of Saxe-Hildburghausen, shines as a rare beacon of genuine affection. Ludwig, who ascended to the throne in 1825, was more than just a ruler. He was an ardent connoisseur of the arts, a patron who dreamed of transforming Munich into the Athens on the Isar. His heart, however, belonged entirely to Therese, a woman he chose not for dynastic reasons, but at the bidding of his soul. Therese Charlotte, Louise Friederike Amalie of Saxe-Hildburghausen, the future Queen of Bavaria, was born in 1792. Her youth coincided with the tumultuous Napoleonic Wars, which redrew the map of Europe. In 1809, when she was merely 17, her destiny nearly took a dramatic turn. In Paris, a new consort was being sought for Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, who had just annulled his marriage to Josephine de Beauharnais. Therese's parents, Duke Friedrich and Duchess Charlotte Georgine, saw a brilliant prospect in this alliance. In their eyes, the modest Bavarian castles, which seemed to them almost rustic backwaters, paled in comparison to the splendor of the French imperial court. Young Princess Therese, with her comely appearance, gentle disposition, and impeccable upbringing, seemed an ideal candidate. However, as often happens, fate intervened, or rather, Napoleon's own political preferences did. His choice fell upon Archduchess Marie-Louise of Austria. Thus, Crown Prince Ludwig of Bavaria, already captivated by Therese, was given his chance. Their wedding, held on October 12, 1810, was more than just a dynastic event. It marked the beginning of the famous Oktoberfest, a festival Ludwig established in honor of his beloved, which still draws millions of visitors to Munich annually. Therese proved to be the very companion Ludwig had dreamed of, kind, loving, and devoted. She bore him 9 children, creating a strong and happy family, a rarity among the ruling houses of that era. Ludwig I made no secret of his feelings, openly admiring his wife. "There is no better wife or mother in the world. If I could choose a spouse once more, I would again marry this beautiful woman, my one and only." These words, full of sincerity, attest to the depth of his affection. And it was this woman, in his eyes, who was worthy of the most magnificent jeweled creations, capable of reflecting her inner and outer beauty. Dreaming of a gift that would become an eternal symbol of his love and admiration, Ludwig conceived of something truly grandiose. It was not to be a mere jewel, but an entire parure, a suite of ornaments capable of eclipsing in its splendor all the treasures that had ever adorned the ladies of the Wittelsbach dynasty. He wished for the brilliance of these stones to speak of his feelings more eloquently than any words. But who could bring such an ambitious design to life? And what metal, what stones, were chosen for the creation of this masterpiece, destined to become a legend? In 1830, when the passions and political tempests of the Napoleonic era had subsided, and Bavaria, under the scepter of Ludwig I, was enjoying peace and a cultural renaissance, the king made his decision. His choice fell upon Caspar Rielander, a Munich jeweler whose artistry was well known at court. Rielander was renowned for his skill in working with precious metals and gemstones, creating pieces distinguished by both the refinement of their design and the flawlessness of their execution. The commission he received from the king was not only an honor, but also an immense responsibility. Ludwig I had a very clear vision of what this gift should be. He envisioned the parure as majestic, dazzling, and crafted from pure gold. The jeweler Rielander, adhering to the canons of high jewelry artistry and practical considerations, dared to propose an alternative. Perhaps His Majesty would consider using silver gilt, or even the fashionable and lighter platinum. For gold, especially in the quantity required for such an extensive suite, would render the ornaments exceedingly heavy. Silver would lighten the construction without diminishing the brilliance of the diamonds, which were traditionally set in this metal to enhance their cool radiance. Platinum, then just coming into vogue in jewelry, offered durability and a refined white luster. But Ludwig would hear of no compromises. Silver seemed to him commonplace, almost base, unworthy of his adored Therese and the majesty of the Bavarian crown. Only gold, sun-yellow, massive, symbolizing wealth, power, and divine radiance, could, in his view, be a fitting setting for the stones he had chosen. That the future diadem and the other pieces of the parure would become a considerable burden for his delicate wife was the least of the king's concerns at that moment. His paramount concerns were grandeur, size, and dazzling brilliance. The parure was to be truly fabled, such that legends would be woven about it. Caspar Rielander, having received such categorical instructions, set to work. Months of meticulous labor went into the creation of this masterpiece. Every scroll, every setting of a stone demanded the utmost skill. The jeweler spared neither precious metal nor select gemstones, drawn from the royal treasury or specially acquired for this commission. Historical records have not preserved the exact quantity of gold used, but judging by descriptions and later accounts of the piece's weight, it was indeed substantial. At last, the day arrived when Caspar Rielander appeared before his monarch. He brought with him not one, but a series of heavy, velvet-lined caskets. Within each, nestled on silken cushions, lay a true work of jeweled art. 6 magnificent ornaments of solid yellow gold, encrusted with rubies and diamonds, formed a sumptuous demi-parure that surpassed all expectations. Ludwig, rubbing his hands in eager anticipation, dreamed only of one thing: to see these treasures upon his Therese. How then did these adornments appear before the admiring eyes of the king and his court? And which specific stones gleamed in their golden settings, destined to immortalize royal love? Imagine the courtiers, frozen in admiration as the lids of the precious cases were opened. What met their gaze was not merely a collection of ornaments, but a veritable embodiment of a jeweler's paradise, an ode to royal largesse and the artistry of human hands. The parure consisted of 6 pieces, each a masterpiece in its own right, yet together forming a harmonious and dazzling ensemble. The central and most impressive element, undoubtedly, was the diadem. Its dimensions beggared imagination. It was not merely a delicate tiara, but rather a majestic coronet intended for the most solemn occasions. Master Rielander crafted an intricate open-work structure of yellow gold. An elaborate pattern of intertwined golden sprigs, stylized as laurel or acanthus leaves, symbols of glory and immortality, formed a tall, almost regal framework. These sprigs were studded with fiery buds of diamond florets. The proud jeweler, with particular reverence, drew the monarch's attention to the fact that the diadem alone contained over 1,000 of the purest diamonds. In that era, it is most probable that antique cuts were used, old mine or rose cuts, possessing a unique, soft and deep brilliance, distinct from the cold sparkle of modern diamonds. These limpid stones served as a magnificent backdrop, emphasizing the grandeur of the central composition. And at the center, on the very crest of this golden splendor, gleamed large stones described as purple spinel. These stones, shimmering with wine-pink and deep red reflections, were often historically confused with rubies due to their similar color. Spinel, especially large and flawless specimens, was valued exceedingly highly. It is likely these were several stones of varying shapes and sizes, forming the central motif. The centers of numerous golden flowers, scattered across the coronet, glowed with captivating rubies, adding passion and royal dignity to the composition. The lower edge of the tall diadem was adorned with a uniform row of perfectly matched round diamonds, creating a glittering circlet. An aristocratic necklace was crafted in the same style as the diadem. It likely comprised large gold elements adorned with rubies and diamonds linked into a flexible structure that followed the contours of the neck. Perhaps it featured a central pendant element with an especially large ruby or spinel, echoing the motifs of the diadem. The clasp, undoubtedly, was also artfully executed and gem-set, serving not merely as a functional detail, but as part of the overall design. The earrings were fashioned in the chandelier style, popular in the 1830s. These were long, tiered pendants that cascaded downwards, sparkling with every turn of the head. They consisted of gold elements studded with diamonds, with ruby or spinel accents echoing the floral motifs of the parure. Such earrings were perfectly suited to the high hairstyles of the era, drawing attention to the graceful neck and shoulders. Two identical wide bracelets were intended to be worn on both wrists, a fashion characteristic of the period. They most likely took the form of massive gold circlets or flexible bands composed of segments, each lavishly decorated with rubies and diamonds in a style harmonious with the other pieces of the parure. The clasps of the bracelets, like that of the necklace, were concealed or integrated into the ornamentation. Completing this ensemble was a magnificent corsage ornament, or devant de corsage. This was a large brooch, designed to be worn on the bodice of a gown at the center of the décolletage. Such adornments were highly fashionable and served as the focal point of an attire. It was undoubtedly the largest piece after the diadem and concentrated within it the most significant stones. Its design likely echoed the central motif of the diadem, perhaps featuring a large spinel or ruby surrounded by diamond branches and flowers. The entire demi-parure was crafted from solid, high-carat yellow gold. Jeweler Caspar Rielander demonstrated not only his skill with gemstones, but also his virtuoso command of gold-working techniques, chasing, engraving, and creating three-dimensional forms. The total weight of the suite was colossal. Even excluding the diadem, the remaining pieces were considerably heavy. King Ludwig I was ecstatic. This was precisely what he had envisioned, an embodiment of luxury, power, and his boundless love for Therese. But how did the Queen herself receive this truly regal, yet so burdensome gift? And was she able to fully revel in its radiance? When Queen Therese first beheld the parure, created at the behest of her loving husband, she was undoubtedly struck by its magnificence and scale. The sparkle of hundreds of diamonds, the deep hues of the rubies, and the regal gleam of gold could not fail to inspire admiration. However, the initial delight was followed by a practical realization. The weight of the demi-parure was far from negligible. Indeed, to put it delicately, that was a considerable understatement. This was particularly true of the diadem coronet. When, for her first ceremonial appearance, Therese, wishing to please her husband, crowned her coiffure with this immense golden coronet, she encountered an unexpected problem. The creation was so massive and heavy that the Queen could scarcely hold her head erect. Gracefully inclining her head in greeting or moving freely was out of the question. According to recollections or legends that have come down to us, partaking of dishes and fully participating in the banquet while crowned with this treasure was practically impossible. Any incautious movement threatened to disturb her equilibrium and elaborate hairstyle. Wise and practical Therese, appreciating her husband's sentiments and the beauty of the gift, found a compromise. She decided that such a magnificent yet cumbersome suite would be worn in parts. The necklace, chandelier earrings, and pair of wide bracelets, though impressive, still permitted greater freedom of movement. They could be worn separately or combined for various court events, balls, and official receptions, as her heart desired and as etiquette dictated. The corsage ornament could also be worn alone, becoming the central accent of an evening toilette. The diadem coronet, however, was reserved for truly exceptional occasions. The queen likely wore it only for the most significant state ceremonies, where it was necessary to display the full majesty of the Bavarian monarchy, and where the duration of the event allowed her to endure such a royal burden. It is noteworthy that, despite the splendor of this ruby parure, we find no portraits of Queen Therese depicted in its complete array, especially with the diadem. Perhaps this was because posing for an artist in such heavy adornment would have been too wearisome, or perhaps the Queen preferred lighter, more comfortable jewels from her extensive collection for portraits. Despite these practical inconveniences, Ludwig I invariably gazed with admiration upon his Therese whenever she appeared in any element of this parure. For him, the sparkle of rubies and the unfading gold were an outward reflection of her inner beauty and the love that had bound them for many years. He remembered her as a 17-year-old girl who had captivated his heart with her charming appearance and gentle soul, and he saw in her the mother of his 9 children, a faithful companion and a wise queen. The parure, born of love, became a family heirloom. But what was its subsequent fate? Was it passed down from generation to generation, and who else among the ladies of the House of Wittelsbach dared to try on this golden burden? Queen Therese's ruby parure did not vanish without a trace upon the death of its first owner. Like many other significant jeweled pieces created for ruling houses, it became part of the Wittelsbach dynasty's treasury, passed down through generations, symbolizing not only wealth, but also the continuity of power, as well as the memory of the love that was its genesis. For a long time, the parure, or at least its most famous component, the diadem, was kept in the Munich Residenz, the principal palace of the Bavarian dukes, electors, and kings. It was displayed as one of the most precious exhibits, attesting to the former splendor of the Bavarian court. However, history had another moment of glory in store for this adornment in the 20th century. Public attention was once again drawn to the ruby diadem thanks to Crown Princess Antonia of Bavaria, born Princess of Luxembourg and Nassau. Antonia married Crown Prince Ruprecht of Bavaria, son of the last reigning king of Bavaria, Ludwig III, in 1921. Their marriage took place after the fall of the monarchy in Bavaria, yet the family continued to play an important symbolic role and preserved many ancestral heirlooms. A photograph survives in which the slender, elegant Crown Princess Antonia, with impeccable royal posture, poses in this very historic ruby diadem. The photograph was likely taken in the first half of the 20th century, possibly for an official portrait or on the occasion of a significant family celebration. Antonia is wearing a light-colored, perhaps evening gown, and her neck is adorned with a necklace of large pearls. But all these details pale in comparison to the main accent of her appearance, that same massive golden diadem coronet created by Caspar Rielander nearly a century before. Looking at this photograph, one can only surmise what emotions the Crown Princess experienced. The diadem appears as majestic and presumably as heavy on her as it did on Queen Therese. It is said that when Antonia placed this tall golden coronet upon her head, she, like her predecessor, could barely move. But what wouldn't one do for an excellent photograph? The preservation of family tradition and the sense of connection to a grand history. For Antonia, who had endured many trials, including years of exile and the hardships of the Second World War, her stance led to her imprisonment in concentration camps. This diadem may have been more than just an ornament. It was a symbol of resilience, a link to the past, and perhaps a hope for the future. It also remained a symbol of true love, the very love that inspired Ludwig I to commission its creation. The fate of the other components of the parure, the necklace, earrings, bracelets, and corsage ornament, is less documented in public records after Queen Therese's era. Perhaps they too were passed down by inheritance and worn by members of the Wittelsbach family, or they may have been dispersed over time. The diadem, however, as the most iconic element, retained its integrity and historical association. Today, it is believed to be part of the collections of the Bavarian House of Wittelsbach and is periodically exhibited, allowing connoisseurs of jewelry, art, and history to connect with this magnificent legacy. Who knows? Perhaps this diadem will bring such coveted happiness to other descendants of the Bavarian kings and serve as a reminder of the power of love, capable of inspiring the creation of timeless masterpieces. But what makes this parure so valuable, beyond its evident material worth and its connection to royalty? Queen Therese's ruby parure is far more than just a collection of precious stones and metal. It is an artifact imbued with history, symbolism, and the highest level of jewelry craftsmanship, which defines its enduring value. The choice of materials for the parure was profoundly symbolic. Gold. Throughout all ages, yellow gold has been associated with the sun, divinity, royal authority, and incorruptibility. Ludwig I's decision to use solid gold, rejecting lighter alternatives, underscored his desire to create something eternal, monumental, and worthy of a queen. Rubies. These blood-red stones traditionally symbolize passionate love, vital energy, power, and courage. In the context of a gift for his beloved wife, rubies were an ideal choice, speaking to the depth and ardor of the king's feelings. Diamonds. With their incomparable brilliance and hardness, diamonds are symbols of purity, innocence, eternity, and unbreakable love. Over 1,000 diamonds in the parure were intended to represent the infinity and strength of Ludwig and Therese's union. Spinel. Although often confused with ruby in the 19th century, red spinel, which may well have been used given the description purple, was also prized for its beauty and rarity, and carried connotations of power and passion similar to those of the ruby. The symbolic significance of the parure, a symbol of love. Above all, this parure is the tangible embodiment of King Ludwig I's love for Queen Therese. It was not merely a status gift, but a gesture of profound personal affection, a symbol of power and wealth. Like any coronation or state jewels, Therese's parure served as a demonstration of the might and affluence of the Wittelsbach dynasty and the Bavarian kingdom. Its magnificence was intended to impress both subjects and foreign dignitaries alike. A work of art. The parure is an outstanding example of jewelry art from the Romantic era, the first half of the 19th century. This style is characterized by intricate, often floral motifs, opulence, the use of colored gemstones in combination with diamonds, and substantial gold settings. Caspar Rielander's work demonstrates the supreme level of craftsmanship of that period. Historical and cultural value. The parure is inextricably linked to key figures in Bavarian history. King Ludwig I, renowned for his patronage of the arts and his love of art, and his consort, Queen Therese, in whose honor Oktoberfest is held. It also bears witness to the courtly culture and jewelry traditions of 19th century Europe. The appearance of Crown Princess Antonia wearing the diadem in the 20th century adds another layer to its history, connecting different eras. Jewelry value. Although an exact valuation of such an historic relic is difficult and often nominal, its intrinsic jewelry value is immense. It is composed of the cost of materials, a significant quantity of high-carat gold, over 1,000 antique-cut diamonds, and large rubies and spinels, all possess high intrinsic worth. Craftsmanship. The work of a court jeweler of Caspar Rielander's caliber is unique and highly prized. The complexity of the design and the quality of execution speak for themselves. Historical significance, provenance. Royal ownership, the personal story of its creation, and its association with renowned historical figures multiply the value of any piece of jewelry. Queen Therese's parure possesses impeccable provenance. Rarity. Complete parures of such scale and in such a state of preservation are seldom encountered. Thus, Queen Therese's ruby parure is not merely a case of a burden willingly borne is no burden at all. It is the weight of history, love, art, and royal dignity, embodied in gold and precious stones. It continues to fascinate and inspire, recalling an era when jewels were not mere accessories, but potent symbols and chronicles of destinies. The story of Queen Therese of Bavaria's ruby parure is but one of countless chapters in the grand tome of royal treasures. Each such adornment is a silent witness to the rise and fall of dynasties, secret passions, and bold political statements. They have seen tears of joy and sorrow, the splendor of ballrooms, and the gloom of exile. Their cool radiance has reflected love, ambition, loyalty, and betrayal. These precious relics live on, passing from generation to generation, from treasuries to museum showcases, recounting their stories to those willing to listen. They remind us that behind the gleam of metal and the play of light in the facets of stones, there always lie human destinies, emotions, and entire eras. What other incredible stories do legendary jeweled adornments hold within them? What secrets shroud the stones that once adorned the world's most powerful and celebrated women? For if the weight of Therese's golden diadem was almost unbearable, then imagine a jewel whose history is so dark and blood-stained that it is called cursed, bringing misfortune to its owners for centuries. But that is a tale for our next installment. And what are your thoughts on Queen Therese's ruby parure? What impression did it make on you? Share your opinions in the comments. Give us a like if you enjoyed this journey into history. And of course, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new stories about the world's most famous and mysterious treasures.